Stephanie Ritter, and I'm going to be presenting my interpersonal communications project. Next slide, please. Stewart defines interpersonal communications as the type or kind of communication that happens when the people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the person. Next slide, please. Throughout this course, we've talked about enlarging the conversation, which simply means identifying needs and intentional resourcing to meet those needs. And this allows us to broaden the conversation so that we can encompass another's viewpoint. Next slide, please. My overarching goals are to become an empathetic listener and to grow in the area of self-disclosure. Empathetic listening can be categorized in 3 different levels. Level 1 is empathetic listening. This is to listen by being present in the moment, by acknowledging and responding the speaker, by listening from an I'm okay, you're okay attitude, and listening from the heart. Level 2 listening is categorized by hearing the words that the speaker is saying, but staying at the surface, by hearing logically, but by being emotionally detached from the speaker. And level 3 listening is listening in spurts, but really faking the listening and thinking of your rebuttals. And I typically function at level 2 or level 3 listening. My second goal is to grow in the area of self-disclosure. And Stewart talks about self-disclosure like openness. So willingness to share with others and to listen to others. And he says to build good relationships, you must be both open with other people and open to others. So willingness to listen to their disclosures in an accepting way. And he also talks about being dependent on self-awareness, self-acceptance, and trust. Gilbert talks about openness as a deep form of acceptance of another and a commitment to a relationship. Next slide, please. At the beginning of the course, we took several assessments, and one was the Uniquely You profile. And so there are 4 different personality profile temperaments. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the D temperament. And this is an active, task-oriented temperament. And so words that describe this temperament are dominating, directing, demanding, determined, doing, and decisive. People that have the I temperament are active and people-oriented, and words that would typically describe these people would be inspiring, influencing, inducing, impressing, interactive, interested in people. There's the S temperament. These are passive, people-oriented, and words that would describe them would be steady, stable, shy, servant, security-oriented, submissive, and specialist. And then there is the C temperament. These are passive, task-oriented people. So cautious, competent, calculating, compliant, careful, and contemplative are all words that describe these people. Next slide, please. So my behavioral blend, the first is the graph 1, and this is the this is expected of me graph. So this is what people expect of me. I'm a C blend, and then the second graph is the this is me. This would be the unmasked normal behavior. I'm an SC or a CS. So on the graph 1, this is what I would perceive people expect of me. So I would perceive that people depend on me, that I'm the planner, the compliant, and that people want my best. And then on the graph 2, the unmasked normal behavior, that I am a perfectionist and a loyal friend. Next slide, please. So now we'll look at the positive aspects and the negative aspects of my behavior blend. The positive aspects are that I'm organized, detail-oriented, a problem solver, dependable, and loyal. The negative aspects of my behavior blend, I tend to be moody and fussy, hard on myself, I experience anxiety, and I'm too serious. Next slide, please. So roadblocks to interpersonal communication as a result of my behavior blend. 2 that I've identified, and 1, I've identified as a roadblock to listening skills would be problem solver. As a result of my C personality, I perceive myself as people expect me to be a problem solver. And so because of that, I tend to be very slow to listen and quick to give advice. So when people come to talk to me, especially on a professional level, I expect that they want me to solve their problems. They want me to give them advice. And so because of that, I typically am forming a rebuttal in my mind. I am forming what kind of advice, how am I going to solve the problem. And so I don't listen empathetically to what they have to say. I'm listening at that level 2 usually, sometimes even level 3. And also, this puts unnecessary pressure on myself because I do feel like I have to always be ready with an answer, ready to solve the problem. And then the second roadblock that I perceive would be a roadblock to the openness area, to the self-disclosure area, would be what Peterson describes as the flat brain syndrome. And he describes this in his book, Why Don't We Listen Better? And he goes into great detail about what the flat brain syndrome is. And he talks about the flat brain tango and the head, heart, and stomach talk. And so as a result of hurt feeling residue from past experiences, typically I would say in personal relationships and sometimes even professional relationships, I do fail to move to that level 2 communication where there's a development of trust and intimacy in relationships, but tend to engage in that flat brain tango where I function in a defense and attack mode with people, and so I feel that that's a roadblock to openness. Next slide, please. Noise pollution also can interfere with how we listen to people. And so there are 2 types of noise pollution. There's internal and external noise pollution. Internal noise pollution are those distractions that are within us that take our attention away from the speaker. So this can be lack of concentration or biased listening. So lack of concentration would be things where your mind wanders or you're forming that rebuttal while someone else is speaking. Biased listening might be things like an emotional detached from what the speaker is saying as a result of maybe a hot button word that they've said. And so I've experienced both of these things while someone's speaking, where I'm forming that rebuttal instead of listening to what they're saying, or an emotional detachment because of a hot button word they've said. And then there's external noise pollution, and this would be distractions in the environment, such as room temperature or noise. Next slide, please. So next is the implementation plan to reach both of the goals that I've set. And so for empathetic listener, some of the things that I have set as some goals would be to focus on the talker's ideas while the person is speaking, and to summarize mentally the things that they're saying so that I can stay focused on what they're saying rather than forming that rebuttal. And to listen from an I'm okay, you're okay attitude, and of course to remember the ground rules. And the 2 big ones for me would be to not give advice and to not interrupt, to refrain from going to that problem solver role, but to stop and to listen. And so on a professional level, I work in the field of education, and so many times teachers are coming to me, and so I've already begun to do this, to not jump into that problem solver role. And I have found already that when teachers come and they want to talk, and I don't jump into that problem solver role, and I focus on being that empathetic listener, that is really what they want. They don't expect me to just solve their problems, but they actually want someone to just